Hey there, and good afternoon. Gosh, we have a good one for you here today. And welcome to those joining me on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. And today we're also broadcasting on LinkedIn Live. So hopefully we'll see you on LinkedIn as well. Now, in terms of job search, the most difficult part of the process for most individuals is actually the interview stage. When we're so lucky to suddenly book that interview, we're over the moon, and then really everything is going to be either won or lost right in the interview itself. So today we're going to give you the secrets, really the secrets that I used to use as myself as a recruiter to help my candidates win the interview, but we're going to teach them to you so you can use them directly. Let me just share my screen. Hang on one second here. Let's get a little welcome. Welcome. So as we look forward to today, and let me just connect my remote, which is a lot easier when it's connected. Sorry about that. All right, as we get moving today's interview intervention. You know, when I was really coming up with the name for this lecture, I was thinking about the challenge, and most of us really need an intervention before our next interview. We need someone to stop us. There's a lot more that we can do. We really misunderstand what this interview really is, which is an opportunity to do some amazing things if we allow ourselves to do some amazing things. But that means you have to understand it in the first place. This is a chance to influence. This is a chance to use all the nuance in your communication abilities. But the biggest thing we have to remember, our success here is completely determined by how much preparation we put into it. If we put a lot into it, and if we understand the major challenge, by the way, there's the major challenge. It's your job to walk into the interview, whether that's in person, over the phone, or a Zoom type meeting. You are to go into that interview with the idea of teaching them how to select you. You understand you're the best individual. It's your job to educate them. Now, the downside, most people try to just be cookie cutter perfect. Oh, I'll just be perfect. I'll be perfect. They'll just see me. They'll just pick me. They're not going to pick you. It doesn't really work that way. We have to think out of the box. Absolutely, you need to be capable, qualified, interchangeable in certain skill sets. But if you're only those things, you're getting less money. If I'm hiring number 2, paying you less. You don't want less? I'll hire number 1, number 3, number 5. Doesn't really matter, all interchangeable. In the interview process, you have to not only satisfy that you are capable, qualified, interchangeable, but somehow position yourself as different, exceptional. And because of that, you're going to have a different outcome, a different production of what you could deliver for them. And you're going to have to think clearly about that and how you're going to convey it. John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker. If you haven't seen me before, resume and LinkedIn guru. So gosh, if you need some help over there, I know where you know how to find it. And beyond that, 7 or 8 years as an outside headhunter. That's a recruiter on a desk having to go into the competitor companies, find the superstar, lure them out. It's really very, very similar to being a glorified dating guru. I have to shepherd them through the whole process, right up to the altar, well, to get the offer, essentially. But we can do that for ourselves in job search. It's a little bit of my background. We'll share a little bit more as we go on. You should know about the people's backgrounds that are teaching you so you understand how to parse and value that information. Of course, my book, I'll throw that up there for a second so you can see it. All the information of that is over on my website. Here's some things that'll help you. If you have not properly built out your LinkedIn profile, be sure to watch my LinkedIn video. It's right on my website, halfway down the homepage. You can see me large, the slides large. You can really use it as a start and stop tutorial as you improve your profile. In my view, your LinkedIn profile has to become a 3-dimensional sales brochure all about you that naturally drives that reader to one singular conclusion. My gosh, if I hire that person, work with that person, that's going to be the best business decision I make today. A few other resources to help you. Over on my LinkedIn, click on my articles, and you can get to a few different articles to either supercharge your job search or avoid the biggest mistakes, or really understanding how to prevent your resume from becoming resume roadkill. Across the entire lecture series, it's becoming a self-recruiter. How do you become this one great recruiter that looks after one great candidate, which is you? That means not only do you have to be both of those people, you also have to be the strategist, the planner, the cheerleader. You got to pick yourself up by the bootstraps sometimes. The major difference is beginning to network in a very different way, and that's really proper use of LinkedIn. The second thing about becoming a self-recruiter is always keeping one eye on the toughest competitor imaginable. 4, 5, 6 people that are the best of the best. You can't really beat those people unless you are aware of them. We'd all like to see the job, maybe get the interview, maybe it goes that smoothly, and we get the interview, we're so happy, and we just expect roses after that, but it really doesn't work that way. It's not really that easy. What we have to do is really understand that it's our job to kind of step out of this broken cycle and really convince them that we're the ones. Now, I think the broken cycle starts with this apply. Well, almost always says submit, all capital letters, until we're so submissive. It's like a Friday night waiting for that phone to ring. Oh, it's going to ring. It's going to ring. Be a telemarketer when it does. So we have to kind of break this cycle that, in my view, leaves us in a very unhappy place. And we have to think about how we change that equation of diminishing returns simply by allowing ourselves to think a little more unusually, unconventionally, unexpectedly. And from that, this big change in outcome happens simply because you change the rules. Who set these rules in the first place? We're this product. And boy, do we have to keep this in mind when it comes time for interview. This is not the dust it off, shine it up. I hope they pick this one. Well, good luck. That's very similar to buying a lottery ticket at the bodega, and we wouldn't plan our financial future that way. We need to make sure we have a proper agenda and everything else because we have a product to market even during the interview. Now, let's talk about the rest of the field. Now, absolutely, there's some very sharp individuals we're trying to beat, but the majority of the workforce, unfortunately, is this: mediocre, of only moderate quality, ordinary, average, middling, middle of the road, undistinguished, uninspired, indifferent, unexceptional, amateur, okay, so, come see, come saw, plain vanilla, fair to middling, not up to much, great, bush league. Wow, those things change over time. This is kind of depressing for all of our future and economy and everything else, but if you understand the bulk of the workforce is mediocre, really just kind of showing up for the paycheck, what do you have to do? All you have to do is be a little tiny bit better than mediocre, and you're ahead of the bulk of the workforce. If you simply put a little heart and soul into whatever the job is that you do, you naturally be the top 1, 2, 3%. So let's think about the opposite of mediocrity, this opposite of this mediocre population that's competing against us. But don't forget, you have some superstars competing against you too. But those superstars usually suffer from a little ego and arrogance, and they don't prepare. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go on. Now, in getting ready for the interview, you have to have your story ready. Let me be real clear up front. You are not there to answer questions, as ridiculous as that sounds. I understand it's a Q&A. I understand they're going to ask me questions, and I'm certainly going to answer some questions. My point here is you're using the device of a Q&A to be able to position yourself in a wonderful answer. That means sometimes I might literally answer the question they asked. Not very often, maybe, if it's to my benefit. But most of the time, I'm going to answer like an effective politician. I'm going to hear the question. I'm going to reframe it in the way I wish they had asked me. And then I'm going to answer that question instead. Now, in getting ready, interviews can take place in a few different ways. They could be in person. They could be over the telephone. More than likely than not, these days, of course, it's going to be in some sort of a video conference. What a strange new world, huh? A year and a half ago, I would strongly recommend most folks avoid video conference in all costs in the hiring process because most of us were not very good at it. But, after more than a year remote, in many of our cases, if we have not gotten up to speed technologically, if we haven't gotten comfortable in this environment, we're going to get left behind. So we have to get ready to effectively tell our story in all of these mediums and make sure that they really work for us. So yes, remember, I said it, don't answer questions really unless you choose to or intend to. There's no hitting the little nerve and we just regurgitate something, hit the nerve, regurgitate. No, absolutely not. Nothing comes out unless I intend it to. So we're using this device, as I said, to really position and sell ourselves. Don't be afraid of that part. This demonstration of your communication ability and gymnastics is also why they will hire you. Now, if you're going to be effective, you're going to have to know yourself. You're going to have to know why you're more valuable than all the rest of the people out there, but especially the top people. So secret you may not like in the whole valuation of you is that really the decision comes down if they think you're capable and qualified. I would not hire anybody I did not believe to be capable and qualified. However, that is not why I hire someone. I wouldn't speak to anyone I did not believe was capable or qualified. Why most people hire, is because of chemistry, number one, above all other things. And number two, confidence above all other things, then chemistry. And that's before the credentialing, background, and everything else. So we really have to understand how to create engagement, which is a lot closer to that type of engagement. Back to this idea of story. Story has a problem because we tend to think of things that may be made up. No, we have to tell a truthful story, but a non-confessional story. Grew up Catholic, I know all about confession. You are not here in the interview to confess what's wrong with you. We're all human beings, which means we are defective by nature and really definition. There's something not right about all of us because we're human beings. That's the way it works. But we put a little makeup on, or we diminish a little defect here or there. You understand. So we still have to tell a story, but I could tell you that same story in a very dull way that doesn't go anywhere. Or I could tell you that story in a very interesting, engaging way. So remember, yes, we have to be capable or qualified, but that's not the reason. They wouldn't be wasting oxygen on you if they didn't believe that already. So let's focus a lot of the story on why are we interesting? What makes us tick? That's a paradigm shift, fundamental metamorphosis we're going to have to go through in how we've approached this. So you have to understand your story. If you've not effectively reinvented the resume or LinkedIn profile the way I recommend, if you had, by the way, you would have gone through a 90-minute deep dive interview to really rediscover what your actual story is. You've told it the same way for so long, you've forgotten 90% of your story. You have to go back and rediscover the story so you can select how to retell it. Then we filter all of that through a singular lens or a singular question, which is as simple as, what items here in my background are going to rise to the level of convincing them why it's going to be the best business decision they'll make today if they choose to hire me? We're going to have to use every bit of our emotional intelligence quotient, our soft skills to make this happen. That's all the things you see on this list, but most important of all is the last two, the friendliness and the optimism. Oh my gosh. I'm a Sagittarius, which means I'm an eternal optimist, even though I don't really believe in the star stuff like that. But it fits, so I'll go with it. But I'm also the biggest pessimist you're ever going to meet, because part of my recruiter training was to train my ears to disbelieve every single word that enters through my ears. Now, I can't let that show because that's not a great way to build chemistry, but there has to be someone listening. That's another person in your brain going, oh, did you hear that? Ask them this. You know, that listener, that evaluator that responds to things that they find astonishing is really great with coming up with test questions. Oh, Jack, Jim, Jill, I have to ask you. And I position something to gently prod them, which is selling to them. Very optimistic. That's your job. The sun will come up tomorrow, even if it's a nuclear holocaust, which we sure hope it is not. So let's think about our soft skills as we begin to position ourselves. That's part of the mastery of how we're going to separate ourselves out from others. Not only being capable or qualified, but really being exceptional. And boy, is that influence. As I'm getting ready for the interview, let's imagine my interview is Tuesday at 10 a.m. Fantastic. Now, it's Tuesday right now, so my interview is next Tuesday. Okay, I got a few days to prepare. Do you know everyone that you're going to meet with? I mean, yeah, they sent me a couple names. Well, what? Sent you a couple names? Do you know everyone you're going to meet with? Doesn't sound like it. You need to reach back out to them. I just emailed them this morning. Email them again. It is worth it. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, looking forward to our discussion next Tuesday. In addition to yourself and Stacy, can you let me know who else I'm likely to meet with so I can fully prepare for the meeting? Now, if you forget to include that word likely, you didn't think about how you'd be trapped. If you forget the likely, they're going to go, oh, I don't really know. And you didn't get very far. If you include likely, you might go, oh, I don't really know, but probably Jack and Steve will join in, and maybe a couple of your peers might join in. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, I got two more names, and I got a reference to two of my peers. I could do a reverse search on LinkedIn of this organization, figure out, oh my gosh, I have 6 peers and I'm going to meet maybe 2 of them, I'm going to have to plan on how to build chemistry with all 6 people because I don't know who I'm going to meet with. If I know for sure I'm going to meet with them, I'm going to open their profiles. I'm going to ask them to connect with a gentle reminder that they should know who I am. You're about to meet me. I'm professionally appropriate. And here's a little stroke to your ego. That's as simple as looking forward to meeting you next Tuesday. And of course, I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Now, keep in mind, some people may not accept your acceptance or your request to be accepted until they've actually met you. So don't attach anything emotionally as to whether they accept or not. Each of these activities, the opening, the asking to connect, that's taking a worm and sliding it on the fish hook and tossing it out into the pond, and be brave enough to let it wiggle around until somebody clicks on it and boom, opens up your sales brochure all about you. That is the actual point. They get over to your deeper sales brochure and begin to fall in love with your skill set. Begin to believe in your skill set before you've ever walked through the door or signed onto the video conference, whatever it may be. All of these little figurative nudges are small changes that change the perception. And that's something that will help you be persuasive. But let's get down to some detail. You're going to have to actually create a real agenda, a real interview plan. We're going to come back to each one of these, by the way, and go down in detail. So this means just like a normal sales meeting, because that's what an interview is, I'm going to have an actual agenda, or how could I accomplish it? I'm going to have to do a needs analysis. We're going to tell you what all those things are. I'm going to have to select and customize my work-life stories to make sure they're ready and accessible during that meeting. And if there's no buy sign, I'm going to have to ask them what's missing, which is a way for them to tell me what's wrong with me. But if I didn't win, I need them to tell me what's wrong with me so I can overcome those objections. That's the only way I'm going to close them on me being the very best choice for this role. That's how I'm going to get either the job offer or the next interview. So promised we drill down deep. Let's go back to the agenda and see how this looks. Who am I meeting? And if you don't know all of the people, you need to reach back out. How can you plan on, how do I build chemistry with that person? How do I build chemistry with this person? How do I build, which story would that person like to hear? Oh no, this person would like to hear that story. You have to decide all of that before you walk into the room. Now, looking at all these people, and everyone is a different human being, how are we going to build chemistry with those folks? Think about which story might aid, in that, or may showcase you as really the best one. Is there something in your story that would kind of make them jump out of the chair, basically? Something else they'd like to hear? You have to think through all of these things in building the agenda. Then you have to make sure as you go through your interview process, even though they seem to control it, you have to basically make sure you get your agenda items. We covered that, we covered that. Oh, we didn't cover number 3. And I can introduce a question. Needs analysis, scary sales term, simply means why don't you hold off answering any questions, really any questions, until you confirm what their need actually is. Mistake that job seekers make is we somehow think that job posting represents what they want to hire. Very, very loosely. If we simply go after and try to present ourselves right for that posting, they may actually have a different target in mind. So before you go through the whole process, maybe they even surprise you at the front of the interview. Oh, John, come on in. I can't wait. In fact, tell me all about yourself. They got a question in before I could even do a needs analysis. In that case, I do a sidestep and I go, oh my gosh, Jack, Jim, Jill, I can't wait to tell you. By the way, I'd like to make sure my answers are really as valuable for you as possible. You know what would help? Of course, I've done my research. Can't let them think you didn't prepare. I've looked at the job posting and looked at competitors and everything else. But what would really help me is hearing from your perspective. Stroke that ego, your opinion, your advice. As I step into this role, notice how I'm visually projecting myself into the role. They imagine me stepping into the role. As I step into this role, what would you see as most critical to get control of in the first 30 to 60 days? Stay away from 90 days. That triggers something very different in the brain. 30 to 60 days, what they'll tell you is what's broken, what's on fire, what just derailed. And that is almost never in the job posting. If you can solve those issues, my gosh, tell that story and you'll probably be hired tomorrow. If they're not as forthcoming, you can dig around for it. What are their pain points, or what would they like to change, or what would they like to solve, or what would they like to be different? Why is this job open? May or may not actually tell you that answer. By the way, there's only a few basic ways the job is open. Either it's expansion, which should tell you a lot. Should tell you that you better be really good wearing all the hats, because you may not have the same support structure you've been used to. You're going to build it as you grow it and as you're running at the same time. That's if it's expansion. Maybe someone got promoted. Okay. If someone got promoted, I wonder what the state of their work product is they're leaving behind. Probably pretty good, and probably they have an attachment to their legacy. They'll probably like to keep that positive momentum moving the right direction. We have to keep that in mind from selling to them. And what if they got fired? What do you think? Not fired, or, well, if they got fired, you know something derailed. So we have to figure out what that is. What if they left on their own? Have you ever left a job for a new job? You know, turn in my 2 weeks notice, go off to the new job. So my follow-up question is when did you stop doing your current job before you landed the new job? Because I know you probably started looking for the new job 3, 4, 5 months before you left. So when did you finally emotionally disconnect and really stop doing that job? Are there things right now about to derail, catch on fire, or anything else that could go wrong? So knowing why the job is open could actually provide you some insight that they may not even understand. And that last question is the gold mine right there. If they tell you what they have not seen, they will tell you exactly why they've not hired. And if I had that background, my gosh, you know, I'd go right for the jugular on that one. Like, that's so interesting, Jack, Jim, or Jill. That's exactly my background. I'm surprised you haven't seen it. You know, I understand why it's so valuable, and I'm going to sell to them. Next step in the process for a really effective interview plan is to get those work-life stories ready. These could be stories about your work, could be stories about your life. Both of them are necessary in most cases to close the deal. So yeah, which stories might illustrate a certain skill or a certain ability or a certain value, something they could have greatest interest in, and then try to figure out which story do I tell which person, because it's not the same set of stories to every single person. Objections, they're overcoming objections. You know, when someone objects, oh my gosh, I get excited. I'm like, well, John, you don't have this background. You know why I'm excited? Because I understand they would not waste oxygen on this conversation if they didn't think, oh yeah, maybe. Oh, I'm gonna have to ask him this. And then they challenge me about, well, John, you don't actually have background in this, in this function. Well, you know, I don't. Just like it's a gift from up there. That's an agree but disagree technique, by the way. Now, let's add some clarity. If I do not have background in this function, I cannot fudge that. That will not go well. We need to be truthful. So the only way to address it is very head on, as if there's no baggage attached. And then I'm going to disagree with what I just claimed by what I say next. So take a listen. And they go, okay, John, you don't have any background in this role. Well, you know, you're right. I don't have any background in that role, but I know you're going to meet a lot of those individuals in the other folks that you talk with. You know, what I bring to the table is something very, very different. And this is why I'm going to be most successful in this role. And I'm going to detail it out. That's my goal. I have to overcome any objection they lay on the table. I haven't worked since last year. You've never worked in this industry. You've never worked commercial, never worked nonprofit. I think you understand all the negative ways they could challenge you. And you have to position with a little clarity that that's actually an asset. Because while those other people may bring a certain set of experiences with them, in most cases, they really bring a lot of negative baggage, as opposed to someone that has a true passion. Nothing beats passion. Boy, I have a true passion for this area. I'm going to produce a different outcome. So objections should excite you. That's them testing you. That's them kicking the tires on the car. They're not going to buy that car without kicking the tires and taking it for a ride. You have to understand that saying. So no buy sign. What does that mean? There are only two buy signs. One buy sign is, gosh, I'd love to bring you back next week to meet Jack, Jim, or Jill. Yes, indication that you're going on to the next round. Even if they don't commit to the day, they may or may not commit to the day right here. But if they committed, that's going to happen for you. Take the win. Quit selling before you talk them out of moving you forward. That's first buy sign. Second buy sign, and the only other buy sign that exists is, gosh, we'd like to get your references. We'd like to move toward offer. Oh, I love the sound of that. Absolutely. By the way, that's the only time references are appropriate, when they express they'd like to move toward offer, not before that. So maybe that's not what you're experiencing. Maybe in a lot of your interviews, they're getting to the wrap-up stage and they go, gosh, Jack, Jim, Jill, whoever you are, what an amazing background. You've had quite the journey. I think, you think you bring a lot to the table. Wow, sounds good so far, right? And then they suddenly segue over to, but we have a few more people to see, a couple more weeks. We'll call you someday or not. And what happened? It's the end of the interview. No buy sign. Now, in-person lectures, I always used to joke about, well, if you know you didn't win, why would you get up and leave the room? I don't mean to stay there so long that they call security. That's not going to help us. In Zoom meetings, everything else, it's about extending that time. It's about not accepting the no buy sign and pushing back to challenge them. And when you challenge them, they're going to tell you what's wrong with you. And when they tell you what's wrong with you, you have a chance to overcome it. So I'm going to use this idea of closing questions, a scary sales term, really simply means ask for what you'd like. That's only half of it. And ask for agreement to it. It requires both halves, or it is not closing. Jack, what have you not heard? Or maybe what have we not discussed? I go a little positive, negative on the style there, because people's brains are wired differently, and I have to hit them both. I don't know which type of person Jack is. So Jack, what have you not heard, or what maybe have we not discussed that would help you in your decision process for this role or position, whatever we might like to say? By the way, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's not strong enough for me. I like even a little bit more. Jack, what have you not heard, or what have we not discussed that would help you in your selection of me as the very best individual for this role? Now, as I teach clients to do that, some of them go, oh, I couldn't say that. I couldn't say that. Okay, well, then you're not going to get this job. Someone will say that, and they're going to say it with the stones that they believe it. We're going to have to drink just a little bit more of the Kool-Aid, because you have to believe in yourself more than the next 5 or 6 people believe in themselves. That's a very powerful closing question. Now, what happens there is, we give you a little bit of a review here on screen. What happens in the closing question is they're going to imagine the decision process as a race or a timeline with a finish line. They're going to imagine you somewhere on that timeline in relation to the finish. And then they're going to think about what's wrong with you. I know, so distressing. Oh, don't tell me. Please tell me what's wrong with me so I can overcome it. And maybe it's something as simple as, well, I do think you have an amazing background, but I think you're probably a little bit short in area A. Pause. Is area A important to this job? It is. Did you talk about it? No, you didn't talk about it. Why? Because you've only done 2 projects in area A, and you were sheepish and you were scared they might realize you don't have enough experience in area A. So instead, you chose not to talk about it at all, which left them the feeling that you have no experience in area A. Okay, now they've said it, I have to overcome it. Listen to what I'm about to say, even though I only did ever 2 projects. And I go, oh, I can see how you might think that. That's as close as I'm getting to the agree part. But actually, I've worked on projects such as this or projects such as that. Which would you like to discuss? Pause. Certainly sounds like those are representative projects of a vast array of experience. I never claimed that. These are the only 2 I've worked on. Everything you say must be letter true. You cannot be caught misrepresenting. But how someone may infer something in a different way, well, that's part of selling. I'm not going to reread this list because it's been up here this whole time and you can think about it. Build your actual plan. If you were working for a company, having to sell a product or service, and you got a great meeting with some company you want to sell to, and you didn't put together an agenda, you didn't think about the needs analysis, you didn't think about how you're going to convey certain stories that will persuade them, you didn't think about overcoming their objections, I don't think you're going to make a sale. Probably not going to make this sale with this hire decision either if we don't do an actual agenda. Here's another way to think about interviewing. We're going to run you through the SelfRecruiter interview checklist. This is another way to think about a lot of those things. Make sure to complete all of your research. That's about the job itself, the company culture, as much as we can glean about that. That's a really tricky one. Let's remember this job. Don't get distracted by the job posting. I call the job posting by a different phrase called the list of the irrelevance. That's a T and an S on the end of that new word. Almost everything on this list is irrelevant to the job. Tangentially connected, absolutely, I get it. That's not a picture of the day-to-day of this job. And yet by the time, it gets down to HR, it's carved in stone, but you don't match the magical, ridiculous items that don't mean anything. I should get some bonus points for that. Another way to think about preparing or doing research for the job is that you think you're qualified. Just turn the job description over. Don't look at it. Why don't you write out the job description? Then why don't you go look at all the people in your LinkedIn network? And if it's large enough, you can simply see every single person that's ever held that job before. How do they talk about that job? If you're really thinking, you can go to the competitor companies anywhere in the country. It's for research. Pull the same people as the competitor doing that job. Even if they do the job differently as the competitor, it doesn't matter. You think you're right for the job. Combined with both of those tellings, it transforms you just in how you're able to put the story together. So do the complete research. Also read every word of the website. That's part of the ability to absorb their language and use their language really against them, so they hear their own employees speaking to them. They go, wow, you seem like you just fit in here. I'm like, yes, because I'm using your favorite phrases right off your website. Needs analysis. We talked about it. Do it early in the meeting, hopefully before you answer questions. Oh, behave. Watch that body language. Body language is really two things. Really, really intensely sweaty hands. You know what? I get them too on occasion where there's a lot at stake. And then I'm tensed up and I go to shake someone's hand. I know they're going, ew. Just none of this stuff. They can't see this. Be careful of that. Other body language thing to be aware of is you can't be so eager that it's desperate. Like one of those statues that no matter where it goes in the room, the eyes just follow you. It's like, oh my gosh, a little creepy security. So I know you want this, but you can't be too eager. That's too close to desperation. Dress like you are a success. That's a warm day. It's been raining here in New York City. It's a little humid to say the least. You think I want to have a suit and tie and jacket and all that on here? Not particularly. But I don't think you'd take my advice if I showed up not looking like a success. So I don't care if you get to wear jeans and t-shirt in your normal life. You're in a suit. You have to look like $1 million. They have to imagine that one time they're having the board of directors or some important client or something. Go, oh my gosh, you're just going to fit in perfectly for that one time per year. Dress like you are a success. It changes you, by the way, also. Are you listening? I'm giving you so much to think about. You're actually going to forget to listen, which is the majority of your job in the interview process. There's all sorts of clues mixed into the words they choose, in between the words they choose, the words they do not choose. So make sure you're hearing reality, not the literal words. You're there to sell yourself, so can't be tentative. I know you're there to evaluate them too, but you cannot let them see you evaluating them. You just have to be there for them. Now, would you like more money? Give you a secret here. John Crant would like more money. Sure, wouldn't we all? By the way, there's nothing wrong with liking more money. Life is expensive. So here is the secret. Would you like to know how to get more money? Don't talk about money. And the first thing my clients go is, but is there something unclear here? Do not talk about money. But do not talk about money. Your mission in life has to have your feelers out there. So I even get a sense that 2 questions from now, oh my God, you're going to ask me about money. I have to introduce such a compelling question that hijacks your brain, turns the corner. You forget to ask John about money. That's your mission in life. By the way, one of my clients is English as a second language. They were interviewing at one of the big institutions in town. They went through 3 or 4 face-to-face interviews. They went through a 6-panel interview. Then they got the call going, oh, come on up and let's have an off-site coffee. That's another interview. I don't care what they call it. Then we think we're getting the call. And then suddenly they're like, oh, we're having an open house on Saturday. Why don't you come work the open house? Like all day Saturday? Oh, I'd love to. Or you're not going to get the job. So we did, of course. And then we finally get the call that we were waiting for. And the manager is beside themselves, flabbergasted, going, you're not in the system. You're not in the system. Masterful. We certainly did not apply online. And you have to understand, my English as second language client successfully navigated and sidestepped every single question about money. They had no clue. Since we did not apply online, we did not disclose the money. And so when the manager heard how much my client was making, this is what was on the phone. I guess we're going to have to look at the top of the next range. Oh, I like the sound of that for the start of the negotiation. And we squeezed out like another $2,632.41. I don't know how they get down to the penny in those organizations, but they do. So that is the real secret. Now, giving you the real secret, will you be able to achieve that secret? Well, in a lot of cases, no. They're going to corner you. They're going to trap you. They're going to ask you before you're prepared. What do you need financially? What are you looking for in a salary? What's your compensation requirements? No matter how nicely they say it, it's the same question, which is how little can I pay you? Do you want to answer that question now? How little can I pay you? I sure hope you do not want to answer that question. There is no way I am ever going to tell someone how little to pay me. There's no benefit to that. In fact, it's disgraceful. It's their job to tell me what they might offer me, and then I can negotiate from there. So if you get cornered and they go, oh, gosh, what are you looking for as far as compensation? Well, first round, because it may take multiple rounds. First round is as simple as, and it just occurred to you, gosh, I'm not really sure. You know what today is about for me is about finding the right home for my career. And that's why I'm so excited by our conversation. And try to look back at them without blinking. It doesn't take that much effort to not blink for a second or two. And when you need to blink, just look away for a second. And I have to look optimistic. Now, as light as that deflection was, that cuts off a third of the people, which is shocking. 2/3 coming right back after you. This time they're probably going to be helpful or try to be helpful, almost like they're like rolling up the sleeves or grabbing the pencil to try to help you with some difficult figures, and maybe coming around to your side of the desk if it was in person type thing. It's like, I just need an idea, just need a ballpark, just need to know we're headed in the right direction. Liar, pants on fire. They're trying to get you to tell them how little to pay you. Please don't answer that question. Again, the second time around, I'm going to really deflect again and simply say, I'm going to really define. Notice I'm going to mention something and then I'm going to define it. I'm going to go, gosh, as I said, Jack, Jim, or Jill, I'm not really sure what to say there. I think you have a pretty good idea of what a role like this is worth. Also, you have to factor in what I bring to the table. What I recommend is, just make me a fair offer. I'm sure it'll be fine. Pause. By the way, if they make you a fair offer, I'm absolutely sure it'll be fine. I'm also very, very sure they're never going to make you a fair offer because virtually everybody lowballs. It's the way it works. Offer them 70 and see if they'll go for it. But we were just talking about 85. Yeah, but we can always go up. Offer them 70, see what happens. I'm like, gameplay. Unfortunately, that's what does happen. But just because they're playing games on their end, be careful. Anytime you negotiate, you could lose. Got to be really, really careful. If they come back after you third time, and that second deflection probably cut off another third or half the people left, that's 1/3 coming back at you like a little charging bull. I'm coming at you. Can't move you forward. I have to have some number. Really? I'm the best thing since sliced bread, and you can't introduce me to the next round because I can't tell you how little to pay me? Please understand how ridiculous that concept is and have some ownership of your value. Personally, I'll walk away and lose this opportunity right now before I'll ever tell someone how little to pay me. And if they let me walk away, they were not the right employer in the first place. So really this last time round, I'm simply going to say, without letting it escalate, excuse the language here, without letting it escalate into a pissing match, it's simply about, well, Jack, I'm not sure what to tell you. I'd certainly say make me a fair offer based, of course, on the responsibility for that role. And of course, those unique things that I bring to the table. 2 components required. And cap it off at the end would say, just make me a fair offer. And that's it. That's about how to get money. Careful negotiating. Time to get it right. Be sure you are ready. First off for the interview. So get in the area if it's in person 30 minutes in advance, not their office. Go for coffee, stop on the park bench, whatever it is. Go over your notes, get yourself centered, make sure your caffeine and sugar and all of that is balanced. And then close your notebook about 10 minutes ahead of time and just be at peace and centered and trust that all of the homework you did will be available to you. And then time it so you can get through building security and through floor security and into their reception lobby 5 to 15 minutes before the time, not a moment sooner. You have an 11 o'clock lecture. You have an 11 o'clock interview and suddenly you show up at 10:35. that is not a good thing for you. Oh, I'm going to show I'm eager. Your 11 o'clock's here. Oh, my day's out of control already. I can't leave you sitting out there 25 minutes. Now I have to put on a happy face. I have a happy face. And I have to come out there. Oh, hi. Gosh, I'll see you right around 11. I can't wait for our discussion. Oh, you messed up my day already. This is a demonstration of how you'll ease their burden, not cause more burden. Next step opportunity, you have to talk about it the whole time. And lastly, you have to ask for the job. By the way, I don't mean simply say, hey, I want this job, although that could work. It really could be as simple as, gosh, Jack, Jim, Jill, I'm excited. What's our next step? And maybe the next step you already know is to walk you down the hall to meet Sally. They go, well, John, I'm going to go down and meet Sally next. Fantastic. Yes, I knew Sally was next, but they needed to hear me. And that accomplishes it. That's the same thing as asking for that. Remember, it's a sales meeting. That's what an interview is. Whether we like that part or not, you have to take back control because it's a sales meeting. You have to make your case because it is a sales meeting. Let's make sure we can win. This is not an interrogation, even though it may feel like it. Style maybe even there a little bit. Just go back to the basics. All things being equal, people are hired by chemistry. So I hope you're working overtime on the engagement and how to build the right chemistry, which is really getting them to fall in love with your skill set. But to understand all of this, you have to also factor in that it's really similar to a dating process, which means it really has to be about them before it's about me. So I have to have real uncontrollable, almost genuine interest, excitement about them, the interviewer, the company, the department, and all those things. A little bit of a repeat slide that we have to pull out here. Sorry about that. Have your marketing materials ready. Don't wait until you get this interview to be ready. So make sure to check out your resume, check out your LinkedIn and all my other videos that will really help you a lot. Prepare the answers to all the questions. Make a list of the questions if you were the manager that had to find you. You know your field. What would you ask to find you? Then add 3 SelfRecruiter questions to that. That's going to help you a lot. And these 3 SelfRecruiter questions are pretty simple. Tell me why I should hire you over all others that I see. Kind of like a throwing down the gauntlet. Of course, probably not very likely to ask you this way, but elements of my answer have to be mixed into all my other answers or I'm not going to get the same benefit. Tell me why my work life will get easier or better by hiring you. Definitely probably not likely to ask this question, but my gosh, I have to have elements of this answer mixed into my answers because if their work life gets easier or better, which is also keeping it about a date, it's about them, I'll hire you tomorrow if my work life gets easier or better. So let's think about that and how transformative it can be. And really the last one, of course, you already know, which is why would it be the very best business decision that I'm going to make today if I would choose to hire you? Prepare all your answers for all that. And then you have to practice really until we're blue in the face. That means either get a good coach, and I know a pretty good one that can help you, or a friend, and practice until you own your story without hesitation. Follow up, thank you note cards, boy, they can really solve a lot. Would you like to be a standout in the interview process? Simply send a thank you note. It is shocking to me that almost no one sends a thank you note. I don't care that so many hands go up when I say, oh, who sends a thank you note? And all these hands go up. I'm like, liar, liar, pants on fire, because almost no one sends a thank you note. Would you like to stand out? First off, just send a thank you note. But really, your thank you note's going to do so much more than just thank you. Why don't you do a little self-diagnosis as you walk out of the interview? Instead of going home, you're going to sit down, coffee shop, park bench, whatever, and do a debrief. Now, that sounds a little crazy. What's a debriefing? A debriefing is a series of questions, a cross-examination, an interrogation. Yes, here's where the interrogation is. We're going to figure out what happened in the interview that we just had, good, bad, or ugly. What did I say that worked well so I can repeat it? What do I wish I said differently so I can change it next time? And what clue did I completely miss? Are there things that I avoided talking about? Most important question you save till last. It's a little demoralizing. That's why we save it till last. And that question is, if they do not move forward with me or do not hire me, what's the reason going to be? Now, don't contemplate that one. That is, we're looking for the nerve reaction. Boom, we hit the nerve. Just regurgitate whatever your gut feeling is. In very short order, after doing this for several interviews, you'll realize your gut instinct is right almost every time. If you would ask me, I'd probably say, oh, probably because I'm weak in area A. Oh, boy. area A was important. I was scared. I avoided it. Now I've left them the wrong impression. I have to fix that, by the way. So after the thank you, let's be clear on what a thank you should be. Please, please, please never, ever again for the rest of eternity thank someone for their time. You must be equal to every other human being that you speak with. If you thank someone for their time, you cannot be equal. You are subservient to them. Your time is just as valuable to them, and you're doing them a great service by bringing this conversation to them, which will help them evaluate properly for their company. Value everywhere. So after thanking them for something meaningful, thank them for the great discussion, the insights, things that they were able to share, then you segue over and go, gosh, we didn't have a lot of opportunity to talk about area A, where I've worked on projects such as this or that. If you'd like to talk about that, reach out to me at any time. By the way, this saved one of my promotions early in my career. I was running a #1 department out of 121 locations, and my retail manager went up to be country manager of Canada, and our location was the #4 store in the country. It was a monster of a store. And so John is naturally thinking, well, I should rise to the throne. I'm already running the #1 department in the country. I should rise to the throne to run the #4 store in the country. Negative was, and this was all before my time in recruiting, the negative was I could see my competitors at the other lesser stores who all wanted this big job. And you know what? They were not competitors. They were not at the same level. I brought a lot more to the table because I'd previously done much more. And that's a very dangerous place to be. That's the ego arrogance place. I didn't see them as competitors. So I thought, well, who are they going to hire? So I went for the interview. I do the interview pretty well, which is not only my manager, who I'm like this with because loves my P&L, but also the other region's manager, who he and I were like oil and water. He really wanted people, minions, really, to follow him around after work to go drinking. That was not my thing. I wanted to, did you like my P&L? That's what I'm focused on. And so he didn't quite get me. And somehow they're arguing about me. And I right after the interview, I call into my spy. Very good to have a spy. Call into headquarters. Oh, yeah, I think it went well. No, they're in there arguing about you right now. Something about your vision for the store. I failed to communicate a vision for my store. How was that possible? And so right away, I thanked them for their great discussion, the insights, everything else. By the way, we did not get much time to really talk about my vision for the store. If you'd like to talk about that, reach out to my cell phone anytime. Click send. Oh my gosh, bullet pointing out the vision. Sure, they're going to call me any moment. Never called me. Got the job just like that. Oh, look, he has a vision. Well, he can't really change anything anyway. Yeah, go ahead and hire him. Thank you notes can save your bacon. So let's think about how that whole process works. Think about how you have to leave them very excited about what that next step is. Let's get over to some video training, because in the modern world, we're going to have to do some video interviewing. That is just how it is. No matter what the platform is, you cannot let your uncomfortability with whatever the functionality is show through. So rehearse with a friend, and understand that you cannot look at the screen. You have to keep looking at the camera. You have to elevate your computer so it's in the right spot. Think about all these things. Now, interviews themselves, they can take place unscheduled, scheduled, in person. We have to think about all of those things because we are in a race to try to get to the finish line. Mostly today, it's going to be video conference. So in the COVID-19 era, interviewing, it's going to be a lot of interviewing, really over Zoom. It's the chemistry and confidence piece, which is much harder to convey. So I wanted to really showcase a few things that I just pulled off the internet. So here are some Zoom shots put right up on the internet. I pulled them down there to really evaluate how people were presenting themselves. So in this particular one, remember, chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? I don't really see chemistry or confidence. I don't think this person is interviewing for a baseball team. Maybe they don't even know they're on an interview or anything important. So I don't see it there. That does not work well. It is a job interview, right? This next one, chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? Really, I don't feel chemistry or confidence in either one of these. This diminished physical presence of crouching down doesn't work for us. The way it's set up with the lighting behind, all I can actually see is whatever is out the window, which pulls me away from your face. So I need to see you, not the sky. There's no lighting. Doesn't really work. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? You know what? I don't really feel the chemistry or confidence, even though I'm sure this person feels they're very confident here. What I don't need to see is your ceiling, and I certainly don't need to see up your nose. So we have to think about all of these things. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? Chemistry? I don't really feel the chemistry. I'm going to give the confidence vote. Going to give it until I take it away. You know why? Couple different things here. When we look at this background, I suspect this person, because of their choices, does not have confidence. They chose a background that is actually distracting and causes me to look away from them at the background at all times, rather than a background that adds focus to them. And you know what? This giant game over the head boom mic, that doesn't work. You're not Madonna on stage, and that does not convey confidence. To me, that's hiding behind technology. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Okay, we'll give chemistry, we'll give confidence. I'm going to give them, I know there's no smile, but I'm going to give the vote anyway. I do like the staging, nice setup, but here again, it's attention to detail. This person allowed themselves to be upstaged by a giant painting that I can't even see, and it's on their wall, that I keep trying to figure out what it is right behind their head. So attention to detail. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? I feel the chemistry. I feel the confidence here. I think it's terrific in the setup. But again, we missed a couple things because we got upstaged again. Yes, I love this wall, but look at the reflection that's being caused. Look at the distraction. And honestly, a wall like that really just causes me to try to zero in with my eyes to figure out what are these pictures behind you. Again, we allowed ourselves to be upstaged. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? You know what? I do feel the chemistry. I do feel the confidence. Fantastic. I don't think the Princess Leia giant earbuds or earphones really do anything here. That undermines confidence, has to go away. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? You know what? I feel both of them here. Also, look at the background. Obviously, this is a stock photo, but they chose a photo that added focus to them rather than a background that added distraction. But again, medium-sized headphones, those don't work really well. I like to listen on headphones. I get it. I get it. You're not here to be comfortable. You're here to win the interview. That's not going to do it. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? You know what? I'll give them the chemistry vote. I'll give them the confidence vote. And all things being equal, this is the winner. Now, I know we still got a little bit of an angle problem, absolutely, but the framing, there's just enough interesting elements on both sides that it's interesting. It frames you. It's not a distraction. Yes, light it a little bit one-sided. You notice I'm doing the same thing here for effect. But overall, this one's going to win if all things are equal, and all things are never equal. That's part of your personal branding, how you decide to present yourself. If I was just standing here in a blank room or up against a green screen, which I am standing up against a green screen, and that's what you saw, you'd have a different feel. With this product that has to be staged. I need to be in a studio, so I'm in a studio. Everything that separates us from others is part of our brand. So we have to think about that in terms of not only these type of things, but all the things that we have to do on the video setup. So I know we have a couple repeating slides here. We're going to zoom ahead here to the right. Oh, the very next slide is the right one. And let's just play that one more time. And there we go. So what you need to see from here, well, I have to add that back to the stream. Let's just share that window right back. Sorry about that. There we go. So this is actually my other half's work desk. You know, everyone a year ago or 15 months ago, 16 months ago, suddenly start to work from home, or a significant number of folks. So my other half set up a front table right by the front window. They look directly into the light. I have hazel eyes. My eyes are very sensitive. I could not deal with that setup endlessly. Although I'm surrounded by giant light boxes, as you're about to see right now. So you can be comfortable with it for a short time. Absolutely. But that's their basic setup. And by the way, there's nothing particularly wrong with that basic setup. That's a pretty good basic setup. You have to have great light to look great, but you may need to add some light. So you have to consider elevating the computer to begin to get the camera in the right spot, so you're not looking down at the camera, and maybe even the use of a light ring. This kind of a light ring, by the way, has a color adjustment wheel on it, so it can be yellowish or bluish or reddish, whatever it needs to adjust to balance out with your camera so you get an amazing view. So think about those small things. If you'd like to sound great, you also probably need a condenser microphone. Not very expensive, very worthwhile. There's the condenser microphone that I am speaking on right now. It's just standing a little bit to my left. This is my actual setup. I am standing right in front of this non-glamorous studio setup. But yeah, this is my setup. I have giant light boxes all around. I'm speaking to my ironing board in front of the bed with boxes piled up, lighting, green screen behind me. You're about to see that as well. Oh, there's the green screen right behind me. So you need lights as many as you can get. Yes, we can get away with that little light ring up front, but if you can get lighting all around you, you get a little better result. You realize how high I have to elevate my computer, because also if you'd like to do an amazing job, I recommend everything is standing up. Frees the diaphragm, big muscle in the middle of your body, also allows you to create great resonance. Resonance is part of building chemistry. In front of the ironing board, I have this little table because sometimes I need to put my coffee down, which I didn't have too much of today. Mostly because I'm out of milk, and who likes coffee without milk? Or to put my clicker, or maybe I have my phone or tissues or whatever else we need. All that has to have some place to go, or notes. So think about what you might put together, but then you're also going to have to retrain yourself to free yourself from needing to look at the screen. I want to, I don't need to. I can simply look at the camera and speak to whoever's on the other end. Brings us to the very end of today's interview intervention. I thank you guys for joining in. Don't hesitate to go see my site, SelfRecruiter.com. By the way, my LinkedIn lecture is right on that homepage, halfway down the page for free. You can see me large, the slides large. Really use it as a start and stop tutorial as you really build out a better, more effective LinkedIn profile. Of course, all my services and all that are over under my services tab, and you can check that out as well, SelfRecruiter.com. Thank you guys for joining in today. Take control in your next interview and understand it's your job to teach them how to hire you as the very best individual. Thank you guys for tuning in today.